I own the hotel and I live there. My life is very much like Monopoly. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 102 of Movies Are Awesome, the show all about soap making. My name is Nathan Pottle, and thank you so much for joining me today. Now, I'm talking today about Godzilla vs. Kong. It came out in mid-March-ish. No, end of March. It came out the end of March. So it's still kind of new. It's less than a month old, and because I was not doing episodes at the time that the movie came out, just from the new baby and stuff, I haven't gotten around to talk about it until today. So today I'm talking about Godzilla vs. Kong, but before I get into that, I just want to talk about for next week, I have a topic lined up if I've watched all the movies that I need to watch by then. So there are 5 movies left that I need to watch in order to talk about this topic that I have ready for next week. If not, I'll have to push it to next week and think of something else, but for now, I hope I get those 5 movies watched by then. I definitely should, but if I don't, for whatever reason, I'm going to have to come up with something else, but let's hope not. Today, I don't think is going to be a terribly long episode, just because Godzilla vs. Kong is not a particularly deep movie, and there aren't a ton of things to really sit and dissect about unless you're really hardcore King Kong and Godzilla fans, which I'm not particularly. I enjoy both of these characters, and I've seen a good amount of their movies, but by no means am I noticing things in the background saying like, oh, this is a callback to that, and I need to talk about this specific thing. That's not who I am when it comes to these characters, so we're gonna just talk about it for a little bit. We'll see how long it goes on for, and we'll go from there. As always, I'm going to talk about non-spoilers first, and then go into spoilers. Not that there's a ton to spoil in this movie, but there are a couple of things that I don't want to give away, so we'll talk about non-spoilers first. Let's say the story of this movie. Now, this is an obvious continuation of the monster universe that they are creating, which started with Godzilla in 2014. Then we had Kong Skull Island in 2017. Godzilla King of the Monsters, I believe, was 2018 or 2019. And now we have Godzilla vs. Kong in 2021. So we've got 4 movies in to this universe. The only one that I haven't really liked so far is Godzilla King of the Monsters. I thought it was kind of a mess and all over the place and tonally inconsistent. But as a whole, it's not awful as far as movie universes go. You know, I did an episode one time on movie universes. If you want to go check out that, you can find it through the catalog. I don't remember what episode number it is, but in that episode, I talked about how this monster universe is in fact the second best movie universe that I've ever seen, second only to Marvel, because obviously how can there's not be number one? And I really like what this universe is going for, with big monsters and like kind of this legacy of the Earth used to be dominated by these huge creatures like Godzilla and King Kong and Ghidorah and all of these different things. Well, I guess Ghidorah was an alien who came from space. Of course, that's where aliens come from. So he wasn't really part of that. So I don't know where I'm going with this. The point is that there's this history to this world and they're building on it. And the story of Godzilla vs. Kong is Godzilla is mad about something. And the movie opens with Godzilla attacking this factory facility type place where this one human character, who I'll talk about a little bit later, he's investigating this company and trying to figure out exactly what's going on and figure out there's something shady going on with this corporation, and he wants to figure out what it is and release it on his podcast so he can talk about it and have everybody be exposed to the truth or something like that. So Godzilla attacks this facility and he remarkably survives, and then it's this mystery throughout the movie of trying to figure out, why did Godzilla do this? Why is Godzilla so mad? On the King Kong side of things, King Kong is living on Skull Island, which seems to have been taken over by the storm surrounding the island. So the humans have created this shelter for him to live in, which is kind of an illusion. It's very similar to the first Hunger Games movie when they're inside that dome, or I guess the second Hunger Games movie has that too, when they're inside this dome and the sky and everything is simulated and he's just protected from the world, and he's just being held here, and the humans are studying him, and there's this little girl who connects with him, and they have some form of friendship. So they're observing him But then this researcher comes in and he says, hey, we need to use King Kong to help discover the hollow earth. And there's this whole hollow earth theory that instead of like the Earth's core, it's actually this other world at the center of the planet, and there's all of these tunnels and things that can get us to the center of the Earth, where creatures like Godzilla and King Kong come from, and where there was this massive war, and they need to use King Kong to try and figure out where this is so that they can better society somehow, because humans can't leave stuff alone, it would seem. So Alexander Skarsgård and Rebecca Hall, their characters are with King Kong throughout most of the movie, and then Millie Bobby Brown and the podcaster guy and the little boy from Hunt for the Wilder People and Deadpool 2, they're hanging out together and trying to figure out what's going on with Godzilla. Millie Bobby Brown's character is one of the only recurring characters from previous movies. She was in King of the Monsters, and now she's in this one. Pretty much everyone else is brand new, though. As far as the human characters go, I might as well talk about it right off the bat. They're not interesting, and their stories don't matter. They're a means to an end in order to get Godzilla and King Kong together so that they can fight. And when they do get together to fight, it is quite spectacular. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I just want to talk about the human characters for a little bit. So Millie Bobby Brown and the podcaster and the guy from Deadpool 2, they're just hanging out. They're investigating this shady corporation and trying to figure out what is going on. And they find out a little bit of stuff, but it doesn't really have a huge bearing on the plot. And this movie is less than 2 hours, so I guess we need something to fill in the time. I was actually surprised to hear that this movie was so short when I found out the runtime and we were sitting down to watch it, because I was expecting, like 2 hours and 20 minutes or 2.5 hours, some kind of sprawling epic where we would get these two characters fighting a bunch of times, but actually Godzilla and King Kong only fight twice in the whole movie. About half an hour in, they finally get together and we have one big clash, which we see on the boat, and then we have one at the end of the movie. And that's really about it. They only fight those 2 times, and that's the whole basis of the movie. We have some other stuff that is alluded to in the trailers that I'm going to talk about in the spoiler section, and some stuff that I didn't expect at all that I'll talk about in the spoiler section. So there is more stuff going on in the movie than just these 2 monsters fighting, and I like some of it. I don't really care about the podcaster and figuring out about the corporation. I care about the stuff with King Kong. I find it really, really interesting, and it really opens the doors to new things that we can have in movies down the line. So I like the world building aspect of the King Kong stuff. I don't really like the podcaster shady corporation type stuff, because really we've seen it a million times. It's not anything particularly new. I'm going to move on, though, to this movie's strength, and that is the strength of the action sequences. Godzilla vs. King Kong is a spectacle to watch when they're fighting. I really wish I could have seen this on a big screen. Unfortunately, due to our lockdowns, we don't have theaters open, so I watched it at home in the comfort of my bedroom with a pizza just on our bed, and me and my wife were just eating pizza and watching Godzilla vs. Kong. And the first battle that they have when they're on the boats, it's really fun. It's really exciting. There's a very clear winner from that fight. I don't want to give away who, but there's a very clear winner. And then they go off and they're separated for a little bit, and then they come back and they have their other fight, which I think is in Singapore or it's in Japan somewhere. Why don't I know this, and why didn't I write it down? Who knows? I don't know. But the point is they have their 2 fights, and they are quite impressive. I think they're good action set pieces. I think the settings of fighting on the boats is really interesting, and it's kind of different, and it gives us like a different terrain to fight on is always really interesting, and to see how Godzilla and Kong use their surroundings within the fight is really creatively used, I feel. So the action for that is good stuff. And when we watch the final fight and they're in a more city situation, I really appreciate how this fight takes place at night, but I can very clearly see what's happening, and I can understand the action beats and what is going on. There are too many times when I watch a battle that takes place at night and they use the nighttime to cover up the lack of visual effects. This movie does not do that. I appreciate that it does not do that. I can list many, many movies that use the cover of night and quote-unquote realism to not show us what's actually going on. I do not care about realism on a movie with a giant gorilla fighting Godzilla. I don't care about realism. Let's talk about Game of Thrones. The final season of Game of Thrones, we get the Battle of Winterfell, and it takes place at night, and when I watched it, I could not see anything. It was very frustrating to see this final battle, but actually not see it. I was so frustrated by that. It's one of the worst episodes of Game of Thrones. I was very disappointed by what was going on in that episode. Another great example is actually the 2014 Godzilla. There's a lot of things happening at night that we can't really see, can't really make it out. There are just so many movies that do this. But Godzilla vs. Kong is really great in that respect, that we're actually able to see what's going on. And I feel this movie, for the most part, is quite competently directed. It is directed by a man named Adam Wingard, and he directed the live-action Death Note movie. This movie was a Netflix original that was based off of an anime, and I actually really like the anime of Death Note. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend checking it out. I find it really, really interesting and engaging, but this live-action Death Note movie is one of the worst things I've ever seen. It's actually, it's so bad. I can't describe it as anything but abysmal. I did not enjoy the Death Note movie. For the most part, actually, Netflix movies are actually pretty bad. So when I heard that this guy directed Death Note, which I actually didn't know until after I watched Godzilla vs. Kong, so I didn't go into it with the expectations of, okay, he directed a really bad movie, and my expectations weren't hampered in that way, So going into this movie, I wasn't familiar with what the director was doing. So when I watched the movie, I was like, okay, yeah, he knows what's up. He was able to direct this movie competently, and I understand everything that was going on, and I was able to clearly see everything, and that's what I wanted coming out of this movie. I wanted good action, I wanted to be able to enjoy said action, and I wanted to watch Godzilla and King Kong punch each other in the face, and that's what I got to see. So, on the crux of what this movie was, I feel like they succeeded. There is something that happens near the end, which is, of course, very predictable, and I thought for sure this was going to happen, and I had no doubt, and when it finally did happen, I was not surprised. So that's what's going on with Godzilla vs. Kong. I like this movie. I think that I need to move into spoilers here just so that I can talk about some more stuff. So that's the end of the non-spoiler section. If you have not seen Godzilla vs. Kong and you don't want to be ruined on anything, if the internet hasn't done it for you already, you can stick around and we can talk about it. If not, go watch the movie, come back, check out the rest of the episode, and let's talk about Godzilla vs. Kong. The first thing I want to say, going into this movie, I expected for sure that the movie was going to be pretty evenly sided, We were going to get Godzilla win a fight, King Kong win a fight, and then they're going to get some kind of team up at the end where they have to work together for something. I knew for sure that we were going to get some kind of team up. I did not think that this movie was going to end with any kind of unresolved animosity between these characters. I thought for sure we were going to get some kind of Batman v Superman type team up, and I was right. But what I did not expect was that Godzilla for sure easily won both of those fights. Like, he gave King Kong what for, and King Kong got trounced in both of those fights. Like, there was no way that you could say King Kong had the advantage in any way. And even with the humans helping Godzilla got a lot of help from the human characters during these fights, and even then, it was not enough. He really lost the battle on the boats, and then he really lost the battle in the city. Even his magic axe didn't really help him that much, and I'm going to talk more about the magic axe in a little bit, but I thought for sure that it would be a 1-for-1 and then a team-up, and that's just not what we got. Godzilla easily won both fights, and then we had the introduction of Mechagodzilla, and this is what introduces them teaming up to fight Mechagodzilla, who has red lasers and stuff. So, yeah, it was surprising to me that they went in that direction, and I was fine with it. Actually, it makes a lot of sense because it was balanced in that way. Godzilla got to win all the fights, and the movie actually focused more on King Kong and the whole Hollow Earth stuff. I didn't expect this movie to be so focused on King Kong, but it makes sense because we had Alexander Skarsgård and Rebecca Hall's character kind of following him the whole movie, and Millie Bobby Brown and the podcasters, they're working apart from Godzilla. Like, Godzilla is by himself a lot of this movie, and we don't really see Godzilla a lot. But King Kong we get a lot of, because they're using him to find this Hollow Earth, and I actually really liked the Hollow Earth stuff. I found it interesting and unexpected, and it gave us so many possibilities of what we can expect from future movies, and if we could get, if I could choose anything from this universe, what I want to continue on this story is not even a continuation. I want to go back in time. I want to get a prequel of a race of Godzillas and a race of King Kongs and just their war against each other. I want no human characters and I want no dialogue. I want a complete visual storytelling experience of this war between the King Kong race and the Godzilla race, and them just destroying each other and wearing each other out, and then maybe the last of King Kong's race going up to Skull Island as part of the finale of the movie, like them not having anywhere else to go because the race of Godzilla's won somehow, or maybe they both surface. This war like brings them to the surface of Earth. I don't know what, but that's what I would love to see as a continuation of this franchise. Especially doing something with no human characters and being able to explore a storytelling perspective on a movie that has no dialogue and just being able to see everything that happens. And even though we learned that King Kong is able to communicate, like he knows the sign language with the little girl, them being able to communicate with each other with maybe just sign language, but not even giving us subtitles as to what the sign language means, but having us all pick it up from context. I think that would just be spectacular. I would love to watch that. That would be my dream project to see come out of this franchise of Godzilla vs. Kong. I think it would just be so interesting, and the possibilities of what you could do and all of the Hollow Earth stuff, it would be really good, and you would be able to just end the movie with such a tragic note. Like, you know that in modern day there's only one Godzilla and one King Kong left, so you can just have them wipe each other out and, have a young King Kong or a young Godzilla and have them just be devastated by the wiping out of their nations. Like, the more I talk to myself about it, the more I want it. I feel like we would never get a project like that, but I feel like that would be so cool and interesting to see. And one other interesting thing about this movie is that there's no post-credit scene. I think for all of the other 3 movies, there is a post-credit scene, but what the director came out and said about this whole thing is that they don't really have a plan of where they want to go forward, because they want to hear what the fans have to say. What did they like about this movie? What did they not like? What could they do better in the future? And then they can plan their sequel from there. And I think that that's a really smart way to do it, as opposed to laying out a plan and then having people not like something and you'd be like, oh, we gotta scrap everything. So if you're gonna make a plan, I say stick to it, or don't make a plan, see what the fans like, and continue on. I really like that that's what the studio is going towards, and they want to see what the fan base has to say. I think the fan base has actually reacted really positively to this movie. I quite enjoyed it. It's actually the 3rd highest grossing film of 2021. Now, when I say 3rd highest grossing, I mean internationally. There are 2 foreign films that I've never heard of, and I forgot to write them down, that have made more money than Godzilla vs. Kong, but domestically, Godzilla vs. Kong is the highest grossing film of the year. It's made the most money, and it's the 3rd highest internationally. So it's getting a lot of traction. A lot of people are seeing it. A lot of theaters in many places are starting to open again. I'm waiting for the day that I get to go back to the theater. For now, watching movies at home is just how I'm going to have to do it. But anyway, I really like that they want to hear what we have to say and go from there. And not in a way of, oh, we hate what you've done, you need to change everything. It's more of a, hey, this is something that we like, give us more of this. And I feel like they're coming at it with the right intentions, and I want to see what they come from this, and I want this universe to continue on, because of the 4 movies that have come out, I've liked 3 of them. So that's a good track record so far. The continuation of this universe, I think, is going to be really interesting. We'll see if Mechagodzilla returns. Mechagodzilla being part of this movie was not something that surprised me based off of the trailers and things you could see in the background. I was pretty sure we were getting Mechagodzilla in this movie, and obviously they needed something that Godzilla and King Kong could team up and fight against, so what better than to make an evil robotic version of Godzilla. It's interesting how they controlled Mechagodzilla. They had this like neural link, kind of like in Pacific Rim, where they have to connect their brains to the robots to get it to control. So it seems to me that you have to connect the driver of Mechagodzilla to the skull of King Ghidorah and then to Mechagodzilla, and then maybe the skull of King Ghidorah became self-aware and made Mechagodzilla self-aware, and then that's when they lost control. I think that's maybe what happened. I'm not 100% clear on it. I think I have to watch the movie a second time in order to just get a clear version as to what exactly happened with the running amok of Mechagodzilla and then this absolute destruction of that city. Like, a lot of people are dead, a lot of buildings are destroyed. It's pretty crazy. I'm thinking, though, that that's pretty much going to wrap up what I have to say about Godzilla vs. Kong, though. I am going to say I liked this movie. I found it enjoyable. I'll probably watch it again. It has a rewatchability to it where it's a lot of fun. I can sit down and just watch 2 giant monsters punching each other in the face and have a magic axe. And, oh, that's what I wanted to talk about, the magic axe. And when Godzilla goes down into Hollow Earth, we see the structures and the ancient hall of the King Kong people and everything that they've done, and he sits in that throne and he pulls the axe out of the ground. I found all of that to be really, really good stuff. And that's what got me thinking of this whole prequel thing, and then I distracted myself earlier in the episode when I was just talking about my dreams of this prequel. But I really liked that scene a lot. I think it was fascinating and interesting, and kind of King Kong discovering this history about his people that maybe he didn't know about, and seeing what he could do and getting this axe and having this hope that he could go kill Godzilla because of this ancient rivalry between their races. And I liked it a lot. That's what I was going to talk about that I completely forgot, but now I'm done talking about the movies. So, Godzilla vs. Kong, have you seen it? Do you like it? I would like to know what you think about that. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at PottleNathan, and you can find the show on Instagram at Movies Are Awesome Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It really means a lot to me. If you haven't done so already, you can feel free to subscribe to the show. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other places. Like I said, I have a topic lined up for next week. Hopefully, I'm fully prepped and ready to go by then. If I'm ready to go, it's going to be a big one, and I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time. So I'm really excited that I'm almost at my goal. Stay tuned for next week. Hopefully I get to talk about it. And until then, if you've got nothing else to do, go watch more movies.